Here I am. Hi.
Hi, good to see
Hey,
you again.
good to see you.
Uh, yeah. Your talk, it says omnipresent leadership, and I'm sure that everyone is thinking about leadership as a whole. But we're going to talk about customer service and experience leadership.
Yeah.
Ty, how long have you been in customer service, customer experience?
Since I was a year old, so about 20 years now.
So
Yeah.
yeah, a servant leader right here in front of us.
Oh,
Then. I
yeah, I've been
love
doing it
it.
for a long time.
And I think if we're going to expand into what we just saw as live chat, and we've already
Mhm.
talked about customer service at large, SMS, Messenger, all these channels, I can see that it becomes overwhelming pretty quickly. So I think having a clear process on how to handle it and how to communicate both internally and externally to make it work properly, I can
Yeah,
see that as being a big challenge.
absolutely. And when you think about any company, customer service has to know what's happening across the business. So marketing can be concerned with marketing efforts and generating sales and growth. They can do that and they can focus on that in a silo. The fulfillment center can focus on fulfilling in a silo. But we have to know which promotions are happening, if there are any delays in shipping, which coupon codes are working, not working. All of that stuff comes from really strong conversations, good resources to keep the team informed.
Yeah, and I think customer service has always put this challenge on margin. So there you have also working with operations on keeping margin slim in our cost per ticket. And John just said that he kind of hopes that there's a changing dynamic in how we work on customer service because it does clearly generate revenue. What's your take? Does customer service sit under operations or marketing?
Marketing.
Okay, I
The
love
reason
it.
why, yeah, definitely 100%, especially if you're in a retention space. Marketing is responsible for generating and bringing in those clients, but garbage in, garbage out. If marketing brings in terrible clients that aren't going to stick, CX can't retain them no matter what. So all of that needs to fall under the same leader who has a responsibility to bring in great candidates, great clients, and at the same time empowers the CX team with the resources and tools they need to maintain.
I love it. Awesome. With that, I will let you take it away.
Jazz hands. All right. Hi, everybody. I am Ty Givens. I'll give you a quick nerdy bio on me in just a second. I'm focusing on omnipresent leadership because if you have a team that you have to lead, you understand that you are expected to be in the past, present, and future all at the same time. Leading CX is not easy. I don't care what anybody says, whether it's where you spend most of your time or a fraction of your time. The reality of it is you're spending a lot of your time there, no matter what. So I'm going to talk to you about some tips that I've learned over the years. Sorry about that. So that's me with, in character form. My name's Ty. I founded a company called the Workforce Pro almost 4 years ago now. I've got 20 years experience in leadership, more specifically in customer experience. And I've worked across the board, be it e-commerce, SaaS companies, healthcare, MLM. Like I've seen it all. I've pretty much done it all. I've reported to all levels in a company, so I know the expectations of leadership at various levels. I also have an MBA in organizational leadership, although I believe more so in practical knowledge than I do in, and having that type of credential, because I've learned a lot of what I know from actually like rolling up my sleeves and doing work. I've managed teams of upwards of 300 people. So I know what it takes. I know what retention looks like on the employee front. I know what it looks like on the customer front. So I'm going to share with you guys a few of my learnings over the last 20 years or so of growing new gray hairs. All right, so I'm going to focus very heavily on millennials. I'm going to tie in like the who, so we're talking about a specific group, which is taking up a good portion of the workforce today and how they differ from generations before. And then I'm going to tie that into customer experience and how that helps you to generate more sales. And then I'm going to tell you what I recommend you do in order to lead effectively. Now, I am not a salesperson. Let me start there. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketer. I'm terrible at sales. I'm terrible at marketing. But I've been able to build a successful business just by being who I am and telling the truth. And so I want to pass that same thing on to you. A lot of the engagements they have is about the relationship and the conversation and the information that's being shared. It's less about hitting a mark on a dollar. So that's what I'm going to impart in you. And I think that comes through leadership and just being conversational, which is what we're here for. So I used to work for a wonderful company called Intuit. You guys have probably heard of it. This was in 2006 now, which is kind of crazy to say. I was there for 4 years. Intuit focused on customer, employee, then stakeholder. A lot of times clients will come to me and say, who should we focus on? Who matters first? Your team matters first, right? You hear that term, happy wife, happy life. It applies in this instance as well. So we're actually in a space now where 44% of our workforce is made up of millennials. Technically, I'm a millennial. I just happen to have started working full-time under a different generation. So my work ethic is a little bit different. What I need and what feeds me is a little bit different. But I do understand because I came up when there was no internet. I know, right? There was no internet when I was growing up. So here we are. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little distracted. So basically, knowing that we have millennials in the workplace born between 81 and 96, this is the largest segment right now. So we're looking at 44%. And sorry, we're looking at, actually it's the majority, sorry. But 44% of them are likely to stick around if they have more conversations with their leaders. And so what we're finding now is that a lot of companies don't actually have the time to have those conversations with their direct report employees. And this is causing a lot of turnover. Now, you might think, if you're not a millennial yourself and you're leading a group, you might say, this is a group that, literally like this most of the time. They're on the phone. And it may seem that they don't actually need the face-to-face. They don't actually need the conversation. They don't actually need the engagement. That's not true. They, in fact, absolutely do need that from you. Only 21% of them meet with their managers on a regular basis. They are also more concerned with doing well than doing good. So we have a lot of, companies that are focused a lot on the social messaging, the concepts of making sure that we have, something that pulls the employee in to get them drawn in who wants to work with us. And that part does exist. Remember, they want to do well. So you have to also tie that socially conscious message back to some activities and actions that are going to feed them and make them feel good about what they're doing. They need approval and they seek praise. So you also need to be able to say, you're doing a really good job with that. Or, hey, I would like to see you do a little bit differently. And the conversations that you have with them have to be constructive and they have to have positive reinforcement. They require a lot of feedback, a lot of support, but they love autonomy. So give them a blank field, a blank space, let them run and let them figure out exactly what it is that they want to do and how they want to do it. Right. So leading the generation. This, by the way, this presentation is going to be available for you guys. Someone said, well, thank you. I needed to see this because this was distracting me a little bit. So connecting them to the big picture. All right, so we all talk about, I mentioned a little bit earlier that customer experience in general, they have to be gurus. They have to know everything that's happening in the business. And they have to know that in real time. Think about it. When you call a company or email, text, or whatever the case may be, when you talk to the company, you are actually saying to them, hey, I had this issue, or you sent me an email and you said XYZ. Well, we all work on the back end of that, so we know that the customer service person is likely not the person that sent that email in. But does the customer know that? They don't. They know that they contacted ABC company and they expect that ABC company knows everything that's happening within ABC company. So you have to connect them to the bigger picture, right? And help them understand their role in the entire system of your company. They're constantly hearing from customers what's not going well, right? So imagine that every day, every single day, they're hearing about something that's broken, something that's not working, something that needs someone who needs help. And that is their job to take that in. but they don't have an outlet by which they can communicate the recommendations and the feedback to you. That's challenging, and that's why we get that crabs in the barrel effect. And they're ready to get out of the team because they actually don't feel like they have any control and they feel like punching bags. So we want to connect them to the big picture and help them to understand what's moving along the CX line so that they know, hey, we're working on this or we're going to change that, et cetera, et cetera. Take your feedback and put it into action. We've got to find a way to capture the feedback. My team and I, we use a resource center. That's what we labeled it. I'm happy to show you guys examples of that if you want to talk offline, but essentially it's a help center that's internal. And basically we log like the latest events that are happening there, how-tos. We put a lot of information there so that we can help you get your teams ramped up faster. So I'm happy to show you what one looks like if you guys want to build one out yourself. And then so this way also you can sometimes have the team members submit requests or feedback, if you will, through the resource center, which is really helpful for a leader if you're managing a large team, to be able to like track and funnel who came up with ideas. It's really also great for public praise. When you are in like an all hands meeting, you can actually go back and say, oh, that's right, so-and-so suggested this and now we're doing XYZ because of it. It feels good to them, feels good to you. They can also see that you heard them and they can track your responses on their feedback that was provided. Set face-to-face touch bases. You can't tell I'm an introvert. I prefer to be behind the scenes with the curtains closed, like literally like Wizard of Oz style, making things happen. I'm so uncomfortable talking to people about things. This is a little bit easier because it looks like I'm just talking to Eric. So this is not so bad for me. But the reality is that the team members want face-to-face. It looks like Luke might have a question. If you type your question in, Luke, I will answer it for you. I'm going to keep going until I see it pop up though.
No, we're good.
Oh, we're good. Okay. All right. So, you should set frequent touch basis. This could be, okay, I'm a coffee girl. Like I enjoy drinks, and, it could be a coffee chat. It could be casual. Hey, let's walk to Starbucks, or it could be something much more formal, but you need that face-to-face time. They need that face-to-face time because they need to feel heard. You need to let them be your customer advocate, right? When you think about CX, the whole purpose of the role is to understand what the customer is actually experiencing, hence customer experience. What is the customer actually experiencing? How do we take that information in, change that into something that's going to be more useful for the company to fix upon? Because remember, if the customer doesn't expect it, then we're wasting our time doing it. And that's a Six Sigma thing. If the customer doesn't want it, don't do it. Do what the customer wants. And that sounds a lot simpler than it is. The last thing you need to do is make them subject matter experts. Why? Because again, when the customer contacts you, they are expecting that that person knows everything. And is it possible for them to know everything? No, but it's possible to make them look like they do, hence the resource center. So connecting is to the experience. I talked about the happy wife, happy life concept. Happy employees create happy customers. When you make them subject matter experts and they know what the heck they're talking about, they convey that to your client in the most confident way. When the client is hearing that information in a confident way, they now trust that person. When they trust that person, what do? They spend money. So AOV increases, revenue increases, agent and employee satisfaction increases because that agent now feels good about being able to provide that information to the customer. And that customer feels good about the information that was provided, and then you got a repeat customer. Take the feedback, put it into action. I talked about this again. You want to make sure that they can help. You need to give them the resources to help. And I'm not talking robotically, where you're simply saying if X, then Y, right? Because that's what machines do. I mean, you guys have seen a bunch of other people talk about how these systems can actually do a lot of logic-based things and eliminate the need for you to have button pushers, right? That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that we actually look at using machines for what we need to use the machines for, and then turning that around and actually having real conversations with customers that increase the AOV, increase revenue, increase CSAT, increase employee SAT. connecting them to the big pictures. This could be during group or individual meetings, but you need to be transparent. That's the main thing. If there's something going on, they should know about it, but you also have to, because remember, for many of these team members, not all, depending on the group you're hiring in, but for some of them, it's their first job. And so because of that, they don't quite know what's okay to communicate out, what needs to stay in, what's, company information, how do we frame that properly for a customer to appease them and to give them the confidence that they need to continue to purchase with you. You have to give them that. Excuse me, guys, sorry about that. So you have to give them that. And when you're giving them that information, they now feel like part of the team. They also feel like decision makers, which is really great because they get to influence how the customer experience happens, which is their job. They need to connect it to that. Also, I'm going to advise you not to use KPIs as a weapon. You'll see in the next line, I'm going to say show them and let them self-manage. Right? That is part of the autonomy thing. Let them be the ones to call it like, hey, I didn't do that right. I want to change it and redo it. Sure, no problem. Hey, I listened back to that conversation and I probably should have handled that differently. You're absolutely right. Please do that. You have to make them feel like they're not going to get in trouble for making mistakes, right? When you do that, then you're going to increase your AOV, your revenue, employee sat, customer sat. So how do we make it work? Well, I need to do a count. I've worked with many, probably several dozen startups in various capacities or companies even, just in general. One of the things that I noticed is that when we talk about CX, because the company does view it as an expense, when it's not actually an expense if you do it properly, it can actually be a revenue generating center if you use some of the tips that I've talked about. Now, remember, I am not a salesperson, but I'm telling you, I've seen this work time and time again. You provide them with the information they need so that they feel supported. They can communicate that to the customer in a genuine way. You will see an increase in your AOV. But in order to service this group properly, you have to reduce your ratios. I don't know about you, but I've seen teams of 15 people who have one manager, 20 people who have one manager. If you want to see this team be successful and you don't want to spend all your time recruiting, you're going to have to reduce those ratios. So you're going to have to pay a little bit up front to get a lot later. So I would recommend a mid-level leader, probably a team lead, someone who's been around the company for a while, or someone who's been a lead in another place. Because if you're a fast-growing startup, you may not have the capacity or time to teach someone leadership. It's a lot easier to teach them how to do the job than it is to teach leadership. Leadership comes with a lot more experience and hands-on guidance from someone who's probably been there before. But if you have 5 to 8 people under one, and 8 is if that person's been a lead for a while and they can kind of maneuver. But it's usually going to be 5 to 1. And you establish that as the go-to person for your core team member when they need those one-on-one conversations, when they need help with a customer. Like, the lead job is to actually support the front line to make sure that they have everything they need to support the customer. If the lead is able to handle that day-to-day for you and you're at the manager level, then you're going to be able to be a lot more strategic, and you're going to be able to work on things like, new tools and resources that'll make everyone's job easier, improved workloads, things like that. Require your leaders to do weekly touch bases, 15 to 30 minutes, formal or not. I am, like I said, quite introverted, so doing the conversations for me can sometimes be a challenge, but it's necessary. So you just want to touch base. Hey, how are you? Even if you just send a message over to say, hey, you need anything this week? Can we catch up? Are you feeling okay? They need that. And so it's not necessarily when you're a leader, it's not about what you need, it's about what the team needs, team needs. Because if you're supplying for them what they need, they're going to supply for your customer. So you want to do that. And you also want to entrust things that are very tactical. If you're a people leader, like your scheduling, right? Because I hear a lot of clients, scheduling falls under workforce management. I hear a lot of clients say, we don't need workforce management. But yet and still, when we work with them, that's the number one driver for reasons why team support. Scheduling changes, help with their schedule. Can I change this? Can I do that? So you actually do need that. So you want to have a WFM strategy. The next thing is your learning and development piece. If you are growing really quickly, you don't have time to teach everyone by, what we call it side-by-side share method. That doesn't always work, because teaching someone how to do the job from one person, you're going to learn that way. So you could end up with 5 different ways of doing the same work, and none of them are efficient. So you should probably adopt an e-learning process for your training, so that you're able to get the training developed, and then you can hire someone to start on a Wednesday and it's no problem. All they have to do is log in and start the work. The next thing is quality assurance. We all know that we have this expectation of how the customer is experiencing your business, but do you actually know what it's like? So finding a partner that can help you with text analytics to be able to review the contact that you're getting, and in a broader way, because I've deployed QA strategies where it was like 1 or 2 people doing 10% of the contacts. And now I deploy strategies where we do 100% of the contacts. And we're using text analytics to drill down and hone in on what's what. So that is my recommendation there. So in order to acquire the weekly touch bases, you have to get rid of the noise, right? Do the things that you're really great at. Being in front of the people is one thing that's necessary for leadership. Let the others go. Ad hoc performance measures. So at any point, someone should be able to pull up a report and say, oh, this is how many tickets I resolved. This is how long it took me to handle those tickets, or whatever the case may be. You'll also be able to customize your dashboards depending on the tool and the systems that you have, but you want to make sure that you're telling a story. And then, as I've been honing in on and drilling on you guys, consistent feedback, moment of truth feedback. Correction in the kindest way, but to help them understand why you're correcting. That is going to move you along. So I went through everything I had today. I don't know if we are able to do like a little bit of dialogue with Derek really quickly, or from the group, but I did at this deck that I put in on the workforcepro.com/leadership. You can go there and download it. And if you just want to chat with me, if you think I'm fun and interesting, I'll probably think you're fun and interesting. You can set up 15 minutes with me when it works for you. And we can just chat. I am not going to do a sell. I just want to get to know you, and you can ask me whatever you want.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm sharing these 2 in chat right now.
Thank you.
Second.
While you're doing that, just a quick note, everyone. I am going to be launching a site called cxactually.com. That's going to be probably July timeframe. CX Actually is going to talk about what it's really like to work in, lead, manage, run CX. I think there's so many concepts out there of like, just do this. And it's like, yeah, but down here on earth, that doesn't work. So I'm going to tell you what really works from a lot of experience, and it's going to be very raw, and I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but you know what? That's all right. It's really going to be what it's like to lead and run and manage this group.
I love it. I love this idea. Can we get random submissions of customer complaints as a function of this website?
I like that. Yes, you can. You sure can.
The best, worst customer complaints, and then you just have like this giant board of like the most miserable things that people say. I know it can be brutal sometimes on the front lines.
Yeah. And you know what we're also going to do? To take that a step further, we're going to include the customers and the employees for the leadership, because you'll be surprised at some of the interesting things you hear from your team members.
Yeah, especially I would say not every business always has their customer's best interest at heart. And sometimes they tell you to do something that really is screwing over your customer. You know, you want to do better for the customer, but your boss is telling you, you can't give that refund, or you can't help them out, or, it's about the money and the margin. You're like, no, it's about the customer. Right?
It is.
And
it is.
Some people, not every company operates in that way, and it frustrates me to no end.
I'm with you.
Sometimes it's helpful to show some transparency into that, because I don't believe that an Amazon review or an on-site review is how you portray whether that brand is customer-centric or revenue-centric, right? I don't think that really ever gets to the bottom of it. It's the people inside the company that know it well, but they're often silenced. They can't speak up because they want their paycheck. They need to keep moving and going about their day. And so some form of transparency into that, I think, would be really valuable to people, and
Yeah.
you know, a lot better than a 5-star or a 1-star review. It's something different.
It's true. And then also another, just to add to that, a lot of times when the team itself feels stifled or quieted, if you will, with customer complaints or feedback, it's because the mid-level is so stretched, they don't even have time. And so because of that, they're not giving the team the opportunity to speak up. So when we talk about whether you grow your team in-house or you outsource, this is when that conversation starts to really get some gusto, if you will, because it's about whether or not you have the time to actually hear that feedback and action that feedback. Most of the time, the team is working in a vacuum and they don't have time to do that.
Yeah, I've seen this happen firsthand when I was in-house at eCommerce brand, 80 customer service agents, and things just so chaotic, so many tickets coming in, so many problems, and like you just can't solve them all. But you know, I looked at a few, and I'm like, you know, as a acquisition guy, I'm trying to also retain customers, and I'm like in marketing, but like, there's this one problem in customer service. I'm pretty sure if we solve that, my retention numbers would look better. The leadership is like, no, we don't want to hear that.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, I can
And
only do so much.
that's exactly why I say that CX should report into marketing, right? So if there's a CMO or whatever that is now, and it depends on the size of your org, and the trajectory that you're on, whether or not you need a VP or a director, or if you need a fraction of type of experience, because sometimes companies will feel like, oh, I'm going to go hire a VP. And it's not a VP you need. It's probably just a really strong manager with like 2 more frontline. And it costs you the same. And you'll actually be able to get things done. But I think it depends on who sits at the table, who's going to allow for that conversation on the strategy, whether you're going to double in size in the next, 6 months to a year. All of that stuff factors into who do I hire next.
And I bet the right person to hire to help you figure that out is Miss Ty Givens.
She might be the one. I think she might be the one.
I love it.
I have if you visit the site, you guys will be able to see like a free resource on managing up. And in there, I talk about ratios and which roles do what. So you can check that out too.
I think that's a fascinating concept. And I do the same thing when it comes to technology. So obviously very different sides of the business, but I always look at the resources, the margin, how many people are in the team, who's going to manage this tool. And then we start to plug in like problems in the business and we go, oh, there's a tool that can actually solve this, but you're going to need somebody to manage it full time. And you're going to need, and you're going to need to understand how to implement this on an ongoing basis and report on it now. And it's a lot more than just plug and play. So I do the exact same thing from the flip side of you, I would say.
Yeah, and that's why we work well together. So I'm so glad I met you, because we get to, there's so much, our worlds overlap so much, and you've been such a great resource to help me with my clients. So I'm grateful for you.
Thank you. And I'm grateful for you. With that, you guys have the links down here. If you have any questions for Ty, her email is in the chat. And you can also look at the show notes in case you need to revisit or want to reach out to her tomorrow or send this over to your customer service team or whoever it is to make sure that it's getting into the right hands. Ty, thank you again so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Take care.